The snow had started again, soft, slow flakes that dusted the NATO forward operating base like powdered silence. Tents flapped against the wind, and diesel generators hummed like tired lungs. Inside the mess tent, the warmth clung to trays of reheated food and the laughter of soldiers pretending not to feel how far from home they were. Sophia moved among them like a ghost. She was small, barely 19, and wore a second-hand fleece 2 sizes too big. Most of the soldiers didn't know her name. They just called her the helper or kid, and handed her trays when they were done. She didn't mind. She washed dishes, cleared snow from satellite gear, carried crates too heavy for her frame. Quiet. Reliable. Invisible. But she watched everything. Her eyes followed every movement during morning drills, every nervous hand when a new recruit handled a sidearm, every subtle correction the snipers made to windage. She had seen it all before, back when her world was still whole. Her father, a national shooting champion, had trained her in secret when she was just a child. Not to fight, he used to say, but to focus. To breathe. To be still in a noisy world. He died 2 winters ago in the first wave of attacks. Since then, she had wandered, helped, survived. And now here she was, cleaning mess trays for men who had no idea who she used to be. That afternoon, as snow thickened and drills slowed, a group of snipers came in, laughing and shaking off the cold. One of them, a tall American with a mustache like a worn-out broom, set his long-range rifle against the table and turned to her. "Hey, Sophia," he chuckled, holding out the heavy weapon. "Here, hold this for a second. Don't drop it, it costs more than the tent." She took it without hesitation, her fingers naturally falling into position. The soldier blinked. "Well, look at that," he said, nudging a buddy. One of them pointed out through the open flap. "See that rusted oil drum on the ridge? Nearly 3 clicks out. You hit that, I'll eat my boots." The others laughed. Sophia didn't. She stepped outside, lay down in the snow, and nestled the stock into her shoulder. Nobody was laughing anymore. The wind swept across the ridge in icy bursts, biting at cheeks and chapping lips. Beyond the training yard, a vast stretch of frozen landscape unfolded, valleys etched in white and charcoal, ridgelines like the backs of sleeping giants. Just barely visible in the distance, a rusted oil drum sat lopsided atop a snow-covered boulder, a lonely relic from a forgotten outpost. It was over 2,900 meters away. Unreachable. Sophia lay flat in the snow, the sniper rifle cradled into her shoulder like it belonged there. The soldiers gathered behind her in a loose half-circle, their breath visible in the cold. What had begun as a joke was now something else. The mocking smiles had faded. They hadn't expected her to actually lie prone, to check wind direction with a twist of her wrist and a scattering of powdered snow, to adjust the scope like someone who'd done it 1,000 times in silence. Ramirez, one of the more seasoned snipers, narrowed his eyes. "She's got a natural cheek weld," he murmured. "And that elbow, locked just right." "Lucky guess," someone whispered. But they were all watching now. Sophia closed her eyes for a moment. She heard the rush of wind, the distant crackle of static from the comms tower, the click of boots in snow. But mostly, she heard her father's voice. "Find the stillness. In here," he used to say, pressing a hand over her chest. "When the world spins too fast, hold steady. You are the breath. You are the trigger." She opened her eyes. The world narrowed to a tunnel, scope, target, nothing else. She slowed her breathing. In. Hold. Exhale. Squeeze. The crack of the shot shattered the quiet. The recoil nudged her shoulder, but she didn't flinch. All eyes turned toward the distant ridge. For a heartbeat, nothing. Then, ping. A distant, unmistakable metallic ring echoed back across the valley. The oil drum shifted, then rolled slowly off the boulder, disappearing into the snow below. A stunned silence followed. No one spoke. No one moved. Even the wind seemed to pause. Ramirez took out a rangefinder, checking twice before speaking. 2,950 meters, he said flatly. No spotter. No correction. His voice was hushed. That's not possible. The American with the broom mustache let out a low whistle and looked at Sophia, who was calmly rising to her feet, brushing snow from her knees. She handed the rifle back to him gently, reverently, like something sacred, and gave a small nod. No smile. No pride. Just memory. She turned and walked back toward the tents, leaving a stunned circle of soldiers standing in the snow, staring at the distant ridge like it had just spoken back to them. Someone finally breathed, "Who is she?" But no one had the answer. Only the echo of the shot remained. That night, the base felt quieter. Not in the physical sense, generators still rumbled, and the radio still chirped with distant check-ins, but in the way people glanced toward the mess tent with something new in their eyes. Reverence. Curiosity. A question on everyone's mind: who was that girl? Sophia sat alone by a small fire near the supply crates, the flames flickering shadows across her face. She wrapped her hands around a tin mug of warm tea, sipping slowly, her eyes distant. The snow had slowed to a lazy drift, the wind now gentler, as if it too was listening. Ramirez approached with quiet steps. He held 2 mugs of black coffee and offered one with a soft smile. "Mind if I sit?" She nodded and scooted slightly, making space on the supply crate. They sat in silence for a few moments, sipping, watching the fire dance. It was Ramirez who spoke first. "No one here's ever hit that drum. Not even the trainers. And none of them ever tried it without a spotter." Sophia didn't answer, just stared into the flames. He tried again. That wasn't luck. Still no response. But after a few more seconds, she whispered, "He taught me to shoot to be calm. Not to kill." Ramirez glanced at her. She didn't look at him. Her voice was quiet, almost fragile, like snowflakes settling on skin. "My father. He was a marksman. National team. Back before everything burned." She paused. The silence stretched, but Ramirez waited. "He used to set tin cans up on the hill. We'd walk for hours just to find a place with the right wind. He'd say, 'You can't make the world quiet, Sophia. But you can be quiet in it.'" She gave a small, sad smile. "I haven't touched a rifle since, not until today." "What happened?" Her eyes blinked slowly. "A shell hit our house the day before I was supposed to compete in the junior nationals. He died shielding me. The rifle burned. I never shot again. Not even to hunt." Ramirez's jaw tensed, but he said nothing. "I came here to help. Fold blankets. Translate. Carry wounded if I had to. I never wanted to hold a weapon again." She finally looked at him. Her voice didn't tremble, it was steady, resolute. "But today, when I held that rifle, it felt like he was with me. Like I was back on that hill." Ramirez took a slow breath. "You didn't just hit a target out there. You reminded everyone what grace under pressure looks like." She blinked, surprised by his words. "You don't have to fight to change people, Sophia," he said. "Sometimes just being seen, truly seen, is enough." She looked away, the fire reflecting in her eyes. "I don't want to be a sniper." "I don't think you are," he said, standing up. "I think you're something rarer." As he walked away, Sophia stayed by the fire, her mug empty, her heart a little fuller. The next morning, the sun rose cautiously through a veil of cloud, casting soft gold over the snow-draped camp. The storm had passed, and with it, something had shifted. Sophia noticed it the moment she stepped into the mess tent, heads turned when she walked in. Not in judgment, not in dismissal, but in recognition. A few soldiers nodded to her. Someone quietly slid her a fresh biscuit from the kitchen tray. The same men who once saw her as a background figure now paused to acknowledge her presence. It was subtle, but it reached her. She felt it. Later that afternoon, Ramirez approached her again, this time with a clipboard in hand. "We're holding a stress training session for the new recruits," he said. "No rifles, just mental focus. Breathing. Clarity under pressure." He gave a crooked grin. "Thought maybe you'd show them how to slow the world down." Sophia hesitated. "I'm not a soldier." "You don't need to be," he replied. "You're already a teacher." She thought about it, then nodded once. They gathered in a quiet clearing beyond the tents, where the wind dipped low and the world felt still. A dozen young recruits, some barely shaving, others trying too hard to act like they weren't afraid, stood in a rough circle, fidgeting with gloves and shuffling boots in the snow. Sophia stepped forward with her hands folded in front of her. No rank. No uniform. Just presence. "Close your eyes," she said softly. The recruits glanced at one another, confused. "Trust me," she added. "This isn't about fighting." They obeyed. She continued, "When you're scared, your breath becomes shallow. Your hands shake. Your thoughts race. That's when mistakes happen. But if you can control your breath, you can control your mind." She walked slowly between them, her voice calm and deliberate. "Inhale for 4 seconds. Hold for 4. Exhale for 4. Do it with me." They followed. She repeated the rhythm. The air grew quieter. Shoulders dropped. Jaws unclenched. "When I was a girl," she said softly, "my father taught me to shoot, not because I needed to win, but because I needed to learn stillness. You can carry a weapon without ever needing to pull the trigger. Sometimes, being steady is enough." By the end of the hour, not a single recruit was fidgeting. The air felt heavier, not with tension, but with focus. Respect. Ramirez stood watching from a distance, arms crossed, a proud glint in his eye. That evening, Sophia pinned a small photograph on the mess tent's bulletin board. A black and white image of her and her father, both laughing, both holding rifles across their backs like walking sticks. Below it, she taped a hand-scrawled note. "He taught me how to hit a target. But more importantly, he taught me when not to." Next to the photo, someone had added another note in thick marker. "For the girl who reminded us, power isn't just in the shot, it's in the stillness before it." Sophia smiled, her heart no longer heavy, but quietly whole. She had taken